All right, what is going on? Hey, it's Scott Penfold, and this is another edition of the Loaded Radio podcast. And this week, I've got another twofer for you, okay? Another double header, if you would. First off, I'm going to be talking to the one and only Josh Todd from BUCKCHERRY, which is pretty damn cool, man. Yeah, BUCKCHERRY currently working on studio album number 11. Can you believe that? 11 studio albums, man, seriously. And they've got some dates that they've been doing, some sort of weekend warriors, I guess you could say. And they got a big date coming up in Brantford at Crew Fest in Ontario, Brantford, Ontario, Canada, along with bands like Headstones, Sumo Psycho, as well as Big Wreck, Goo Goo Dolls, and The Trues. So that's happening July 19th and 20th in Brantford, Ontario, Canada. You can check out crewfest.ca. That's crewfest.ca. Not to be confused with the Motley Crue Touring Festival. But yeah, looking forward to talking to Josh because he's a guy I've never talked to before. And there's been so many things I've wanted to ask him for so many years. So I'm going to be getting down to that. Also, the second portion of the podcast, I'm going to be speaking one-on-one with CAPSTAN drummer Scott Fisher. CAPSTAN are a killer American post-hardcore band hailing from Orlando, Florida. They've been around since 2012, and the band has released 6 EPs, 3 studio albums, and were formerly signed to Adventure Cat Records, currently with Fearless, and they've got the new album out now called The Mosaic, which arrived in May, so it just arrived last month, and it's quite a listen, man. It's quite an epic listen. And one thing I gotta say about the band CAPSTAN is that they have really evolved over the years, man. Since 2012, I mean, I guess 12 years they've been doing this now. One of those bands that has really come a long way musically in what they do and the way that they create music. So it's going to be really cool talking with Scott from CAPSTAN a little bit later on in the show. Okay. First off, though, hey, don't forget, check out loadedradio.com for all your hard rock and metal news. That's constantly updated, dude. Also, tons of big name interviews right there for you. And did I mention we have a live radio station right there for you too, featuring live personalities. Yours truly is on the air there daily as well. We got specialty shows, interviews, tons of cool stuff. Even the free Loaded Radio app, you can download that wherever you get your apps or at loadedradio.com. Okay, so yeah, give it a whirl, give it a check out if you would on your device or your laptop, whatever. Okay, but yeah, let's get this interview stuff going on right now with this guy here. He is the frontman for the band BUCKCHERRY. BUCKCHERRY's been around since 1995, and then they broke up in 2002 for a few years, got back together in 2005, and they're currently working on studio album number 11. And the guy who has really been there from the beginning would be this guy here, who is Josh Todd. He's the frontman for the band. And yeah, I mean, hey, come on, who doesn't know who Josh Todd is from BUCKCHERRY, right? Josh, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm in LA in my home, and we start up some of these fly dates here on Thursday, and had a busy morning already.
I know you got some dates coming up that we're going to be seeing you at in Canada as well, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And the band currently celebrating 25 years since the debut album, which is a really pretty huge deal, man. Like, did you think you'd still be doing it all this time later?
I didn't really think about it, honestly. I was going to go that long. I mean, I wanted to be in one band and make a catalog of music and, make my mark, but I didn't know it was going to go this long, and I'm super grateful. And, we've worked really hard for it, on top of it, as we've been on the road a long time. So, I really stay in the moment in my life. So I don't really look back too much, but I've been looking back since we hit this, mark, and it's pretty cool.
When you do look back at that time, how do you feel about that time? And what kind of emotions come with that?
Yeah. There's peaks and valleys, you know what I mean? I try to just hang on to the peaks, and I've grown a lot since then. I've had to overcome a lot of adversity as well. And such as, life, you know what I mean? It's just part of this journey, and the music business has changed incredibly since we first started. So all that being said, we base our reputation on our live show, and we are a very unique rock band. We always have been since we started. We were always like the black sheep of rock and roll, because there was really nobody like us when we came out, and there still isn't anybody like us now, so that can be an asset and a liability too, so just proud of what we've accomplished, and to have 10 records in this game and to still be doing it and is pretty awesome.
It definitely is, man. I mean, and 10 records in, like you just mentioned. Now, what's the status of album number 11? Is that currently in the works right now then?
It is, yeah. We've been laboring over the songwriting. Actually going to leave here right after I get off with you and go record a song with Stevie, and been writing a lot. We got about I would say 6 great songs for this record, and so it's getting that last 4 that we need, but we got some really great stuff, and it's going to be a great record.
That's cool, man. So probably 2025 release around there then?
Yeah, 2025 for sure.
And have you found that it's been difficult at times to do what you do and remain sober?
No,
really?
Because I put in the work in my recovery. I got a really good foundation. You know, I work a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I still go to a lot of meetings this day. I sponsor guys. I continue to check and recheck myself in that department, because I just wouldn't have anything without that. You know, that's my greatest asset. You know, it's like that trumps everything, you know, so I have to put that first every day. And, you know, the committee between my ears, gets louder and louder. I mean, it gets, it's getting more intense, you know, over time. So I have to do more work, you know, with meditation and meetings and putting pen to paper and all the things that, you know, I call my spiritual tools. You know, alcoholism is a vicious, cunning, baffling, and powerful disease, and you gotta really work hard at it.
But I gotta ask you, since you've been sober since '94, so you wrote "Lit Up" when you were sober, is that right?
I did, yeah. Lit Up is about the first time I did cocaine, you know, and so yeah, it's about my high school days. There was a guy who will remain nameless, who graduated ahead of us. I was in a public school, pretty small school. It was under construction, so it was pretty small school, and he got an apartment right next to the high school, and I couldn't figure out how the fuck he got this apartment, you know, with what money. And then I figured out he was dealing cocaine. So he was dealing cocaine to everybody at the high school. So at one point in my high school, there was like jocks, cheerleaders, punk rockers, surfers, metalheads. We were all on cocaine. We had a lot of cocaine rolling through that school, and it was a lot of fun. You know, I used to, I don't know if I'm sure you've done a lot of cocaine at some point, but there's a thing called the bullet, and so you chop up a vial of cocaine, and I could just bring it to school and do little toots, you know, in between classes, and and that was fun. I had a lot of fun on that drug, and I had a friend who I got loaded with. His name was Frank, and every time we get high, you know, if we do a line of coke or smoke a joint or whatever, he'd go, Josh, what am I right now? And I go, I don't know, Frank, what are you? And he goes, I'm lit up like a fucking light bulb. And he would say that all the time to me. And I always loved that. You know, it was our little back and forth. And so when it came time to write the song Lit Up, I just walked into rehearsal, and here was this song playing, and I'm like, this has got to be a party anthem, you know? And that's why I called it Lit Up.
And honestly, you know, the first time I saw you guys, I mean, I think the first time I saw you guys live was Crew Fest. And I remember when you guys broke into that song, and I'm sitting there thinking, I mean, I would have had no idea that you were sober. I would thought these guys are partying. They're doing massive rails backstage. You know, that's what I thought. I literally did. But I mean, good for you, man. It's awesome.
Some people have a real hard time with that I wrote that sober, you know, and it's like, well, fuck, I definitely qualify. I've done a mountain of this shit, so don't worry about it, you know?
I wanted to ask you, how do you look back at your time in the formative period of Velvet Revolver, the whole Cherry Roses thing?
Yeah, I never was a part of Velvet Revolver. You know, the Cherry Roses thing was just a show we did with Matt Slash and Duff, me and Keith. And we did all these cover songs. We did some BUCKCHERRY songs, Aerosmith, the Guns N' Roses. And we did it for a Randy Castillo cancer benefit in LA at the Key Club, you know. And at that time, it was just Keith and I looking for new band members, because 3 of the guys had quit and BUCKCHERRY, and it was we were still signed to DreamWorks, but we were, you know, still looking for people. And then we had this opportunity to do this show with these guys, and we did this show, and there was like this buzz around the show. after we did it. And Keith and I were talking, and I was like, man, that was like BUCKCHERRY with like really great players, you know. That's how and I was like, we should call these guys and see if they want to do something, you know. And they were thinking the same thing, and so we became a band for like a month, and we were attempting to write songs. We never got anything over the finish line or recorded anything, but we were actively at rehearsal, and we were also talking about band names and looking for management and all this stuff, you know. And then all of a sudden, Slash came in and abruptly pulled the plug. He didn't want to do it, and that was it. And then they went on to do Velvet Revolver over time. That's what I guess that evolved into, and that was it.
So was it just like, you know, like just like that? It was done, no explanation, anything. It was just finished, like no reason.
It was weird. I forget what he said when he came in to rehearsal, and you know, what are you going to do? You know, can't do anything about that. So I just left, and that was it.
You mentioned Keith. I mean, do you miss having Keith Nelson in the band? I mean, you guys were doing it for so long together.
Not at all. No.
You don't, eh?
No, it's been, I don't know how long it's been. It's been, I think, over 7 years, you know, so I don't really think about it much.
No, do you guys keep in contact at all? Is there a relationship there?
No.
Okay. Getting back to some more of your catalog. I mean, I got to ask this. This is something I always said that if I ever had the chance to speak with you, I would ask you about this, but who was Crazy Bitch written about?
It wasn't anybody in particular. I was just driving around LA at that time in my little Toyota truck. And it was at the time where the Paris Hilton sex tapes had come out, and Kim Kardashian had dropped, she said she didn't drop it, but there was a sex tape that she found. And it's like these girls like started getting their careers started from these like basically homemade, you know, sex tapes. And I just thought that was funny, you know. In my head, I'm just driving around thinking about it. And then I started thinking about like some of my crazy ass, you know, girlfriends when I was in, you know, high school, and you know, the type of girls that were a lot of fun, you know, in the sex department, but, you know, not real great girlfriends, you know. And I just started singing this chorus, you know, and I didn't want to forget it. So I called. This is before, you know, smartphones, and I didn't have anything recorded on. I didn't want to forget it. So I called my mother, and I sang it on her voicemail. I said, don't erase this. And I sang it. And that's really how Crazy Bitch started. You know, my mom has always been a very big supporter of me all throughout my music career. I started in bands when I was 15. So yeah, she knew the drill. And it was, that was it. That's how it started. And I just wanted it to be like super simple, like a hip hop song that, you know, but meets rock, you know?
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, I guess, but of all of the choruses to leave on your mother's voicemail, that song, eh?
yeah. But my mom, you know, I was hell on wheels. I was partying. I started getting loaded when I was 13. So, I mean, she knew, and we had a very open relationship, and so she knows about all my stuff, you know. So the craziness, it didn't surprise her.
Now, BUCKCHERRY, you guys going to be performing at Crew Fest Friday, July 19th in Brantford, Ontario, Canada.
Let's go!
Man, that's going to be with Headstones, Big Rex, Sumo Psycho. How do you feel about the festival circuit, man? You hyped about it? You still dig it after all these years?
Of course. I mean, we like we have the same approach to everything. If it's a club, a theater, an arena, a festival, whatever, you know, we just want to bring it. We want to be unforgettable, you know, and give people their money's worth. And that's really the mentality.
Now, do you find that, did you actually prefer festival shows to, like, say, for example, just touring, or did you like intimate venues still? Do you still like doing those kind of shows? Like, what do you prefer?
I like the competitive aspect of festival shows. You know, you want to be the best band of the day. You know, that's fun, and that gets me going, especially after all these years. And so that's cool. But I mean, I like everything. I love to perform. You know, so there's aspects of every situation that's really cool. You know, I don't like one thing over the other. You know, of course, we want to play in front of big crowds, so festivals are always fun.
Now, also, you know, you've done a fair bit of acting in your career. Is that something you plan to continue?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. You know, I got a really good reel I've done a lot of stuff, and then I've just kind of been dormant for a while, and I just got kind of I just want to do the job. I'm not really crazy about auditioning for stuff, but now I'm starting to get the bug again, so I'll do some auditioning. It's just the auditioning gets to be a lot. You know what I mean? It's like there's so many hungry actors out there. You know what I mean? So I just want to do the work, and I was fortunate enough because of what I've done in music to get the roles that I got, and then I just started building relationships, and I just got role after role for a while there. I did very little auditioning, so to go in an audition is a beating. But now you can do all these video auditions. Because I don't have time. Like in LA, I don't know if you know LA, but like to drive like 6 miles in LA, it takes like 45 minutes, and like, so to be home, to not be home a lot and to come home and have to go, not only learn a part and then drive somewhere 45 minutes and then put it on tape and then drive home. It's like you kill a whole day doing it. And then like, I remember one time I auditioned to be a tattoo artist in some like TV show. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to get this. This is easy, And I had like, maybe like 5 words and I didn't get it. I was like, this is ridiculous, So I just started getting kind of turned off by, the labor of, going on auditions, because like, and then you go in and there's a casting director and they give you such a dry read, they just read the lines to you and you're having to, act out the scene. And it's like actually doing the scene is so much funner than, doing the audition, but you got to get good at it. I mean, that's part of the game. And, it is what it is.
Is Josh Todd the Conflict still a thing? Is that still a project that is active in any way, shape, or form?
We did that record, and it's a great record. It's just, in order to make it worth our while, we got to be able to make money at it, and to go out on the road and do all the things that we need to do, and we went out on the road. We did the most we could do without coming out of pocket, so we would do it again if the option is there to make it lucrative. And right now there isn't.
Was it an enjoyable experience for you though, doing that project?
Very enjoyable. It was the first record that Stevie and I got to do together. And he and I have known each other for 30 some odd years. I love him. He's a very talented guy. And, so that was the first record we got to do together. And now we've done, a lot more. We've done, we're on our 4th BUCKCHERRY record together, and it's been amazing. We've been writing the best records of our careers. So it's been awesome.
What else is going to be coming up in the months, the year ahead for BUCKCHERRY? I don't know if you think that far ahead. I know it's living one day at a time, essentially living in the moment. But what are the plans for BUCKCHERRY right now?
Right now we're doing fly dates, so we're weekend warriors right now. Starting on Thursday, we kind of go out on Thursdays and come home on Sundays, and so on every week till like November. And so we do like festival shows and biker rallies and our own show, our own headlining show, all kinds of stuff in there. And in the meantime, we're compiling the songs for the record, finishing that up. And then in November, the plan is to go record the record and then, kind of take some time off for the holidays and then go at it hard in the new year.
And I mentioned before, like the first time I saw you guys was on Crew Fest. It was back, I think it was like, oh geez, man, 08, 09, around there. It might have been, I think Crew Fest was. Do you still keep in contact with the guys in Mali at all? Did you ever get close with those guys like Nikki Sixx? I know that Nikki's sober as well.
Yeah, Stevie has a good relationship with Nikki, and they go back and forth on text, I think, occasionally, and same with me and Tommy, and I know Nikki too, but we're not that close. But Tommy and I go back on text, here and there. But it's they're very busy guys, and we'll see them and catch up, when we see them. But they're awesome dudes.
How do you feel them being out there with John 5 right now? You think that they're killing it, or?
I haven't seen it with John 5. I'm looking forward to that. I haven't seen it. So once we get out there, I can't wait to see it. But I heard it's amazing.
It'd be badass to have BUCKCHERRY and Motley Crue go out there again together, man. I think that would be a killer tour. If you can make that happen, dude, I think people would love that, It
would be great. And we would love to do it. They just, they had that tour with Def Leppard that like got pushed because of the pandemic, and then they had to do that whole tour. So, yeah, if they want to do it, we would love to. You know, it's up to them.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much, man. Really do appreciate it, Josh, and all the best to you. And dude, hey, you keep up, keep doing what you're doing. You know what I mean? And you know what I'm talking
about. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Take care. All the best.
Be good.
There we go. That is Josh Todd from BUCKCHERRY. And yeah, man, album number 11 in the works, going to be dropping in 2025. And don't forget, there as well, playing Crew Fest in Brantford, Ontario, Canada, coming up on July 19th and 20th. So worth a trip, or if you are local, go on by and check that out. A great lineup there too. Check out crewfest.ca for lineup and info on that, okay? But now this part of the podcast, we're going to be switching it up. I'm going to be speaking to the drummer for the band CAPSTAN. Okay, now if you haven't heard of them before, they're a really cool post-hardcore band from Orlando, Florida. They've been around since 2012, so they've been doing this thing for about 12 years. And this band has really evolved, man. I mean, calling them post-hardcore, I mean, they've done everything that really is, I guess they have so many elements of metal, so many elements of hard rock, so many elements of post-hardcore, but even some elements of pop in there early on. But, I mean, they're one of those bands that sort of lull you in with something beautiful and then just smash you over the head. You know what I mean? It's that kind of a band, and they do it in such a cool way. And this new album they've got out now called The Mosaic is just simply what it sounds like. It is a massive piece of art, which is to be consumed that way, man. So Scott Fisher, the drummer, joining us here on the Loaded Radio podcast. How you doing, Scott? Thanks for joining us on the podcast, man.
Hi, Scott. How you doing?
First off, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us here. Really do appreciate that, man. And really cool. I really dig the whole thing with the Mosaic, dude, and what CAPSTAN's doing. I mean, let's definitely get into the Mosaic. Where did the whole concept come from to do this project?
That is a great question. I think if it would be a lie to say that, oh, let's if it would be a lie to say that like we totally went out with the idea that we wanted to do like an 18-track concept, like
right,
concept record. That wasn't the case. It kind of like we wanted to just ever since Separate, we kind of would been just like, oh, let's just try to write the best music, or best like I don't want to say best music, but like try to have like just like really strong choruses and things like that, like strong song structures. Mm-hmm. And with this one, we went into it with the same idea, except we ended up just having different ideas. Like some people came to the table with pop tracks, some people came to the table with metal tracks, things like that.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, we love both of these, so let's just we just kind of leaned into maybe having a bunch of different kinds of songs is a cool thing. And then as we start to expand on that, it kind of just evolved naturally.
You know what? And that makes a lot of sense why it would be such a perfect name for a project like that too, because I mean, it marks a bit of a shift from the darker themes of Separate. I mean, did you guys set out to get a more optimistic direction with the album, or is it just something that sort of happened naturally?
Yeah. So honestly, Separate was all the lyrics primarily written by Joe.
Yeah.
And he was just going through a tough time in his life at that time. And now entering this new era, several of us have kids and long-term relationships, and everyone's really happy. And it was more of a decision to depart from things that are, super sad and focus more on like what makes the world a great place rather than what makes life horrible, right?
Yeah.
And that's like with Misery Scene, that was kind of, we chose that to be track 2 because it was and Joe wrote those lyrics too. It's a departure from, I turned my life into a misery scene, which is his take on basically the writing of Separate and, breaking out of the cycle of feeling bad for yourself and then discovering that life can be beautiful and lovely. So that's kind of the stylistic change there.
Yeah, and what, that brings up a really valid point that I really wanted to ask you too. Is do you find that the process of creating music is very therapeutic in a very positive way in with certain individuals, like you included?
Oh, certainly. I go sit at the piano if I'm feeling stressed out, depressed.
Yeah.
It's always been a therapeutic thing, and I don't think that's exclusive to me or my bandmates. I think that not only exclusive to musicians, but it also applies to everyone. I mean, as fans of music, who doesn't find, if not cathartic, but joyful, and even in sad moments, it's great. So I think as fans of music and musicians, that's kind of where we all sit.
Certainly so. I mean, and someone who's, I've worked in rock reality for over 20 years. I've always loved music, and I've always found, for me at least, that it's always been an amplifier of emotion for me. And I want to experience that. I want to feel those feelings that, like when you get a new album and you get that experience of throwing on those headphones and just letting it roll. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's definitely, if you can, because it's long. It's like the last track is 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
It's a it does like the overture, the whole thing, and it's meant to be consumed that way. So if everyone in the band, we all listens to albums. So
me too, man. Yeah.
And the album, I think the album is just, it's kind of dying right now, but I think there are sects of like fans that really love that whole, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to listen to the entire album and digest it in the way it was intended.
So much.
So yeah, if that's how you prefer to listen to it, I hope you love it. Yeah.
That's great, man. Because I mean, honestly, when you look at music these days, I'm not going to say I'm sad about it or it's like, oh, it's too bad. I mean, maybe it's going back to, I know a lot of bands dropping singles. There's a lot of bands that they're saying, we're not even going to make fucking albums anymore. We're just going to sort of drop this here and there. And we're trying to get streams and build money by touring. But I mean, there is such a beauty about, even like going back, and maybe I'm aging myself, of, lining up outside a record store on the day that album drops and grabbing it and like bringing it home and like just the opening it up, the gatefold, and just the whole experience was just such a magical thing.
I totally agree. I mean, I kind of came up during the onset of in the mid 2000s is when I kind of like really started to dive into like scene music like this, and I loved like buying a Victory record. And then they'd have like the sampler of other Victory bands, and then like you go read the booklet and you see, oh, this band is thanking these other bands to their homies, and like I love that. It's like a huge part of the culture in there. And
I know, man. I feel so many people are missing out on that too. It's really too bad. It's such a cool thing.
I totally agree.
But getting back to the Mosaic, I mean, the band self-produced this. How did that impact the creative process and I guess the final sound of the product?
Yeah, so it impacted it a lot in two ways. It really, the self-producing thing. This is the first time we've ever done it, and it's really a double-edged sword. Because on one hand, you can make the music that you exactly want to make. You're not locked into a timeline where, say, a record, you're making a record for 6 weeks. You're in the studio for 6 weeks, right? The record is done after those 6 weeks.
Yeah.
In this way, you really get into like, okay, we can make it exactly how we want because there's no timeline or there's no deadline, right? But then the other side of that is then you get into revision syndrome and like, well, wait a minute, I don't think that this synth is quite right, or just you get into like, oh, these little micro edits that actually no one would really ever notice. It's arguable if it makes it better, but it really becomes, you get hyper focused on it, and then there can be disagreements about something that doesn't even matter. So that's a big takeaway, just how you got to manage your expectations and then step back and think, does this actually matter? Like, do these little changes matter? But all in all, it was a great experience because there was a lot of things we did that we had to learn about on the way. So a lot of learning, a lot of experimentation. It was my favorite record we ever made, creatively and kind of all over the sound spectrum that what the record is. So I think it came out great for being the first time we self-produced like that.
Do you find it difficult being that, you're producing as a group and say, let's take, for example, a song like Heart to Heart, a positive song, message of support. I mean, was there a personal experience that one person had with this and they brought it in, but then somebody else maybe wanted to tinker with it? Like, Did you find that was ever an issue, or how did it work that way?
Yeah, there were some disagreements. I mean, yeah, Heart to Heart, that one's just Harry wrote it about his loved one. So, it's all just, that's all true. And that song came together super easily. Like, there was that one in particular, no back and forth. It was like, oh, this, like, all this makes sense. We're going to do it like this. It all makes sense. But, there are other tracks. There are other tracks that were like, oh, well, like, this should be totally different. And some of the tracks are totally different than what their demos were to start. Yeah, every song is completely different in that way. Sometimes songs take a lot longer and there's a lot more disagreement. And yeah, like Heart to Heart, none of that. It was just pretty straightforward.
The one thing I love about Capstan is that, well, you'll put on a Capstan album and then you'll be brought in and sort of almost lulled into something so beautiful, and you just be like sucked right in. But then almost like a couple of seconds later, you're getting the crap beaten out of you. You know what I mean? But you know what I mean by like the heavy breakdowns and these big hooks. Like, how do you as a drummer approach this? I mean, it's almost like a contrasting sort of element that with your drumming style with this. I mean, did you find that you had to like really concentrate on this sort of method of drumming?
Honestly, not so much. Like, again, like some of my favorite bands are like, I love like the 1975, but I also love Black Dahlia Murder. So yeah. I grew up playing, Joe and I both kind of grew up playing death metal. So,
oh, awesome, dude.
Yeah. So it kind of just like, that's kind of I think our sound spectrum fits somewhere in between those two bands. And, so yeah, I've been playing hard stuff, like the heavy stuff, for a long time, and it's just been a lot of fun. Yeah, just applying all these different types of techniques and just experimenting, making the stuff we want to make.
I'm just looking at the growth, really, of Capstan. I mean, let's even go way back, dude. Like Seasonal Depression came out in like 2015, I think it was, and just the way I'm not going to say a character arc, but just the evolution of the band, which we did talk about a little bit earlier. Of course, life goes on, positive things begin to happen. But I mean, what are some of the key factors that you think contributed to the band evolving the way it had?
Oh, that's a good question too. I think people grow up and you kind of find different things interesting. And at that time, like Seasonal Depression, at that time we were like, oh, we liked pop punk and that was cool, but we were just never quite a pop punk band, like we were like, why our stuff isn't pop punk, but we didn't quite figure that out until later. Like we were like, right. Well, we're a pop punk band, but we weren't ever a pop punk band. So, because I mean, Seasonal Depression is pretty close to the pop punk. It is a little darker, but as we left that, we got heavier and we got lighter, and then every record has gotten heavier and lighter. So like,
totally, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. So the spectrum's just growing and growing and growing. So like, who knows? I have no idea what the next Capstan will sound like.
Scott, thank you so much for your time, dude. Please give my best to the rest of the guys in Capstan. Tell them, we'll see you out there on the road for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Super cool.
Anytime, buddy. All the best to you.
All right, take it easy.
That's Scott Fisher from the band Capstan. Check out the Mosaic. It's out now via Fearless Records. And yeah, man, I'm telling you, it is one of those albums to be consumed from front to back as an experience. Throughout this, literally just throw on those headphones, burn one down, and just let it go. You know what I mean? It's such a cool listen. But that's going to do it for this week. And hey, man, just shoots by so fast. Another one next week, though, so don't worry, okay? Back with a new episode of the Loaded Radio podcast next week. Looking forward to it then. Looking forward to talking to you then. As always, my friend, great hanging out with you, okay? Right here on Loaded Radio podcast. I'm Scott Penfold for Loaded Radio.
Loaded Radio.